In this episode, I'll go through the basic vector tools Photoshop has to offer. And although Photoshop is not the best software to create vector illustrations, you can certainly get started with the concept of using vector shapes. And let's see how that works in Photoshop. So let's create a new document. Click the Create New. We will use 1000 pixels by 1000 at a resolution of 72, and I'll click Create. This will create a blank canvas, and you can find the vector shapes on the tools bar. Right over here under the text tool, you have this icon. Maybe by default you have this one selected, and if you click and hold, you will just open this list of tools. You have basic ones: rectangle, rounded rectangle, ellipse, polygon, and line. And then we also have the pen tool, which is a different tool that is used to create vector shapes. Basically, a vector shape does not lose its quality. You can scale it as much as you want, and you will not lose quality on it. Okay. Now let's see the basic tools and what you can do with it. Let's select the rectangle tool, and once you select any of the vector shapes, here on the options bar on the top, you will see a set of settings. Now the first one, by default, you want to have it on shape, unless you want to create a path. And I'm going to explain the difference between the two of them. If I start to create this rectangle here, something really simple, just it looks like this, and you can tell, as I mentioned on a previous episode, that you can tell this is a vector shape because you see this icon on the bottom right of the thumbnail on the layers panel. So see this square? That means this is a vector shape. When you open the properties panel, you have a few settings, and some of them can be found over here as well. So you can stroke this. For example, you can choose to have an edge on it, and you can determine if it's a round edge or if it's a square one, if the stroke is on the inside, on the middle, or on the outside of the shape, and also which kind of edge you want to have. Of course, you can also change the fill. If you click this button, you can change the color of it. Also, you can do it from here. If you double click on the thumbnail, it's going to open the color picker, and you can change the color from here. But if you want to change the color of the stroke, you either have to go here or here. If you double click, it's just going to open it for the entire color of the object. Now we also have a few options that we can make these shapes interact with each other. For example, I could create an ellipse tool, and I could choose, let's leave it on normal. I can now choose unselect this layer, select the ellipse tool, and from this icon over here you can choose all sorts of interactions, let's call them. Okay, so I could choose, for example, intersect shape layers. Now select this layer and create this like so, and this is what it does. Okay, so we have a few options. You could change them from here, from the top. Also notice that here we have on this cogwheel, we have a few settings. By default, they're unchecked. For example, if I choose the polygon tool, I can have, for example, let's say 5 sides and create something like this. If I activate the star option, this is what it does. It's going to create a star with 5 spikes, but I could have 6, for example, like that. Okay, let me just delete that and do it again. Or I can also choose smooth corners, and it's going to do this instead of that, and something like this. But since I have 6, I'm just going to put 3 so you can see it better. Okay, this is what we get. What else we can do? Let's see the custom shape tool. This is really cool because you can download shapes from the internet. So if you just click once on any of the vector shape, it allows you to enter precise dimensions. Okay, but by default I just click and drag. When you select the custom shape tool, you have here a list of shapes. If you just click this drop down, you will see a list of shapes. Maybe you have some others, and if you click on this cogwheel, you see a list of other sub presets. For example, I could choose objects and click OK. You will see this list. If you click all, you will just get a larger list of objects in here. Now you can, as I said, you can download this from the internet and expand your list of custom shapes. You can find dozens and dozens of free shapes like this on the internet. For example, let's choose this hand over here. Okay, so I can select that and start painting it here on my canvas. Now, when you just click and drag, you can see you can distort it like so, and when you let go, it's going to create the shape for you. If you want to keep the proportions and not distort it, for example, I'm going to keep it like that, and if I now press and hold the shift key, you can see what it does. It just keeps the proportions, and now I can continue to scale it up without distorting it. If you also press the option key at the same time, you will scale from the center, which in many cases is useful. And when you let go, you can create the shape. And with the V key, now you select the move tool and you can center it on your canvas. Again, you can change the color with double click. You get something like that. Now, you can also change the feather of it, but this is an option that maybe it's not available on all Photoshop versions. But basically, that's what you do with the custom shape. Okay, so of course you can change the orders here if you have multiple shapes. For example, this one, I'm gonna change the color of it and just make it a little bigger. With Control Command T, you open the free transform tool, and you can change the orders from here. But this is when you combine multiple shapes. Let's do something like this. Okay, so just play with the options in here and see what they do. Then we have the pen tool. The pen tool is really useful when we want to create free shapes. So you can start drawing like this and create free shapes. We also use this tool to make selections sometimes. So this is something a little more advanced. So basically you change the shape option to path. And for example, if you want to extract an object from the background, you can trace a path around that object and then right click and choose make selection. Okay, you can also define a custom shape from this. If you right click and choose define custom shape, it's going to create a custom shape which should show up in here once you create it. Okay, the difference between the shape and the path is that the path does not create any layers. So if you click the paths tab here on the layers panel, you can see that the path is here. If you unselect it, it's gonna go away, but it's still there. Just have to click the path so you can see it. And when you select this path layer, you can turn this selection into that path into a selection. You can stroke it with the brush, or you can fill it with a color. One other thing you can do is, let me show you how to modify. Let's say you created this path and you want to modify it. How do you do that? Well, you have to use this other option, this other tool, which is called the path selection tool. Click on it and the points start to show up again. And you can click those points. You can go back to the pen tool and you can click on them with the control click. You can click and start modifying those points, or you can add more, or you can remove points if you just click on them, or you just can do stuff like this. Remember, using the command, shift and option always gives you options to make all sorts of things, to just move one point or move both of them at the same time. So just spend a few minutes, play with the tool and see what you get. And on my YouTube channel, I have more tutorials about this, and you can find more in-depth tutorials about the pen tool and the vector shapes in Photoshop. But for now, this is just a really quick introduction to the vector tools.